I can't, so the photography,
It's the very end. Here.
it's, I know, I just need to find the spreadsheet again.
Okay.
Okay. it is. All right. Who's on now, Randy?
We're still waiting for.
No, they were live. They said we are.
Oh, they did say.
Mhm.
Wow.
Lights, camera.
All right, this is the Standards and Assessment Committee meeting. Once again, we're continuing with our standards so that everything is ready to go to the full board next week. And we welcome everyone. We have Deputy Superintendent Norman joining us virtually. And here in the studio, we have board members Reel and Booth and Earl. And virtually we have board member Klein and board member Green. And I think that's it, right? And we have several staff members here live in the studio. And of course, Andrea is keeping all of us in line and helping us make sure that we get everything done we need to get done. So we express appreciation, especially to Jerry and his team for making this work when it appeared it wasn't going to. And so we're just grateful to be connected by baling wire and duct tape. And we're going to just proceed and get a lot of good work done today. We're going to begin today with photography 2 and 3. And we can just start. Whoever has, go ahead.
Yeah. After looking down through the changes, and I know maybe there's some amendments to come forward, but I'll make the motion that we approve commercial photography 2 and 3 with the recommended changes to strand 6. Is it strand 6 on both? To strand 6 that staff provided for us, and move to the full board for approval of those strands.
1 and 6 for 2.
Okay, let me rephrase that. It's strand 4 for 3 and strand 6 for photography 2. And move it to the board for final approval.
Okay, we have a motion to move the changes, strand 6 for photography 3 and strand 4 for photography 2.
Other way around.
The other way around.
So photography 2, strand 4.
Strand 6.
Okay, photography 2, strand 6, and photography 3, strand 4. That's the final word. We got it right straight from the horse's mouth over here. And so, is there any discussion or question regarding that motion from Vice Chair Earl? Seeing none. I'm assuming there's none. Speak up if there is. I'm assuming we can hear you. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, that was Board Member Klein. Board Member Green.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So that was 4 ayes and 1 no vote from Board Member Klein. All right, so is that everything we need to do with that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now let's move to our education classes. Principles of Educational Instruction. And I'm sure we have some motions and probably some amendments.
First, need to make an emotion that we accept, meaning that we work from the updated version of, what's the name of the course? Teaching as a Profession to Principles of Education Instruction. So I'd make a motion that we work from that document for today's agenda.
Okay. Do I have do we need a second?
Mm-mm.
No. All right. Any discussion regarding that? We have a motion to work from the updated version of education, principles of teaching as a profession to principles of education instruction. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That's unanimous.
Yes. No,
No?
yes, I would like to just put forward my motion for the course description.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay, I move to strike the current course description and replace it with the following. This course examines the principles of educational instruction and prepares future educators to meet the academic needs of all students. Students will identify ways technology can be used in the classrooms while protecting student data. Students will selectively use technology to develop a professional digital presence and to explore professional learning networks. Students will develop and design a course within a learning management system, LMS, as well as traditional non-tech options to support student academic needs.
Where did? I don't think.
Is that different? I'm
Different.
sorry, I was reading off my paper. So if this is,
Well, I'm reading Board Member Klein replaced with this course examines, but it's different than what you just read. So is there?
okay. Sorry, I need to I was looking at the wrong paper. So yes, let's take what's on the screen here. So it would read, this course, don't know if you, okay, this course examines, oh, sorry, trying to get it where I can read it here. This course examines and puts into practice principles of educational instruction necessary for future educators to successfully teach foundational academic subjects. Students will identify and evaluate educational tools to improve their lesson planning, organization, and execution. Students will design and develop lesson plans and coursework for traditional classroom instruction and a course within a learning management system, LMS, while protecting student data. Students will develop a professional digital profile and explore learning networks and job sites.
Okay, 2 questions. I don't think that the updated course doesn't actually, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't develop a professional digital profile and explore learning networks. So that was not added to the current course.
That was removed. There was a strand with regards.
Yeah, so I think it was simplified, right? That
Well,
was-
if you stick with, if you followed my amendments throughout, you'll see that I kept those things in. So this matches the amendments that I have forthcoming.
But we're now working off the new one.
Course description less than.
We're using the new one now.
My new edits that I submitted on the 21st included replacing some of the new language with my old edits from December.
Yes, but I just don't see and maybe I'm not looking at your new edits. I think I am. I don't see where there's actually students will develop a professional digital profile and explore learning networks and job sites.
Well, I don't know if everything got added to this sheet as I was quickly scrolling through. It didn't look like everything was there. So I don't know. I didn't get to look at this ahead of time to see if they transferred everything over as I requested in what I submitted on the 21st.
Should be what you submitted on the 21st.
So I don't know if we can, I mean, then it should be there.
Elise in the Google Drive is her 21st edits. If you can pull that up.
Patty, do you want me to share or you've got it?
I mean, I printed off your document. I couldn't see some of the edits because like it just has the course description stricken. And I'm just not seeing, I see areas where you have highlighted, but I don't see anything at
If
the
you
end.
click on the highlights, it gives you the edits.
So strand 4, you changed then and added things back in. That's where I wasn't able to see that. It didn't come up on my computer.
So if you open the document that I submitted, you can click on the strikes or the highlights, and it should bring up the amendments.
I guess that's what I'm saying is it didn't do it in my document, if that makes sense.
I apologize. Like I have it open on my phone and it won't let me on my phone click on it. But if I open it in my from the email from my desktop and download it, it does. And when I hover over the highlights, it shows what the edits are.
Let me try it on this different computer and see if it.
Patty or Elise, are you able to share your?
So what you're
screen?
saying is that this says replace entirety of strand 4 with what previously submitted as strand 5, add strand 5 with what it
That's not
previously
the
had.
right one that's on Zoom. It's the document that's titled 12/21/23.
I don't quite understand though, if we just now adopted the new one.
No, we said we would be working
just
from the new one
amended
for our
the-
edits.
Yeah, so what she's saying is that she would like to replace strand 4 with the previous one. And then also add a strand 5 with what I previously submitted, with whatever she previously submitted.
Right, because when they rewrote it, they eliminated a strand.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting that extra strand back.
December one. That's the strand for the strand for.
Okay. So we can either, I don't know if we want to amend the introduction now or at the end. I would make a substitute motion that we amend the introduction at the end so that we can go through any changes instead of trying to guess that. Which means we already accept the changes if we amend this
Oh, no,
ahead of time, right?
right, except for my computer might restart in 30 seconds.
So I would just make a motion that we
Proceed with the,
amendments first and come back
Amendments.
to the introduction so that we can align with whatever we approve instead of the other way around.
okay, is that good? Are you good with that, Emily and Natalie?
That's fine.
Start with the amendments. And then we'll come back to the intro after we've gone through all the amendments. So we can just start right at the top, the first amendment. Member Klein.
Yes, so I would, for strand 1, I would move to replace the entirety of strand 1 with what I previously submitted in December. So hopefully that is up and available for you to see. In the spreadsheet. I don't know that it is, but
Just have this one on strand 1.
So are you just, the strand 1 is there on the screen.
I'm talking about the entirety of that strand. So
Strand one.
standard 1, standard 2, and the performance skill.
So-
All the way till strand 2. So
Motion she made, right? Natalie, it's the motion that, it's what you would have made if we had proceeded with the original one, right?
right, the December one before the writing committee rewrote. So my motion is to replace what is in this new document with what I submitted in the previous version, for the previous version.
So if, whoever's screen sharing in the Google Doc, there is a draft 2 from Emily, for Member Klein that you could pull up and you could see what she's submitted originally.
And that would be in,
I think it's here.
I know, yeah, but I was just trying to.
Does this look correct on the screen?
Yeah, with the blue.
Yeah,
Yep.
Elise, is that in the Google Drive?
yeah, that's in the Google Drive. It's draft 2 Klein proposed is what you can see.
Okay.
But you have to go back to the December meeting and not this one.
Okay.
Natalie, do you want to speak to it while we're waiting, maybe?
Sure. So, basically, we just, I mean, I can read it. So it says students will explore and identify the roles of technology to enhance lesson planning and organization and direct teacher instruction. And then do you want me to go through standard 1 and standard 2 as they would look under that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so standard 1 would say identify the purpose of technology to enhance lesson planning in the classroom. So that's standard 1, speaking back to strand 1. And standard 2 would be we just look at them in their kind of the big picture. Explore how teacher organization can be enhanced through the use of technology tools, and provide examples of organizational tools in education. So this is speaking to, and then you can see the rest that's there under standard 1. You have discussed how technology facilitates lesson planning, including understanding your technology. What resources might you have at your disposal? For example, tablets, Chromebooks, interactive whiteboards, and how do these tools function and fit into a lesson? Identify your learning objectives. What are the skills or knowledge you want your students to acquire by the end of the lesson? A plan for integration. Technology should not be the focus of the lesson, but a tool to help achieve your objectives. Prepare for challenges, consider backup plans for technology failure, anticipate different student needs and tech support options. And last on standard 1 is evaluate. Did the tech enhance the learning experience? Did it make concepts easier to understand? So that is the whole of standard 1. Standard 2 would again be the explore how teacher organization can be enhanced through the use of technology tools. Organizational tools include resources, techniques, and apps that help you optimize your workflow. Provide examples of organizational tools used in education. And then I think Andrea added and what they can be used for. I don't think I had that on there, but then the 3 bullet points: learning management systems, productivity apps, parentheses, Google Suite, Microsoft Teams, etc. And then 3rd bullet point, whiteboards, Jamboards, SMORE, and other group communication tools and platforms. And then the strand 1 performance skill. Students will create a media presentation to show how technology tools can be used to improve lesson planning and organization. So this speaks to how technology can be a tool to enhance the teacher's ability to teach instead of turning the teaching over to tech in large part.
I just still need to see it and I can't.
Okay,
find it.
so I would be,
I have it in the document now in the table.
all right,
You mean on the,
yeah, there it is.
well, I just want it on my computer because it's so tiny on the other computer. If you can
Do you want me to get on it?
yes, I would love it. Because I got access to the January Google Drive, but
Ashley, can I ask you a question? Just, can you tell us, just the changes that you made and why you made those changes so we can understand that?
So,
Strand one.
so my name is Ashley Higgs. I am a CTE specialist that oversees the teaching as a profession pathway. After some collaboration and discussion with board members, it was asked that we bring this back to get some feedback from other staff within the agency. And this was recommendations through staff and changes that they would like to see.
Okay. And so just, can you maybe articulate why strand one is developed the way it is so I can understand?
Yeah, so I think the purpose behind changing strand one to how it was is that they wanted to have a basic understanding of the science of learning and how students learn. And that's broken down into the 6 different learning principles of what we want educators to understand with regards to the science of learning and how kids basically learn based off of previous knowledge and those sort of things. And then we connect that to the universal design for learning, which is a teaching approach that works to accommodate the needs and the abilities of all learners, that also eliminates unnecessary barriers in the learning process. We included specific things that we wanted them to know, so it wasn't going out and trying to search different things. We wanted to be very specific in what it is we wanted them to learn, or wanted the students to know with regards to science and learning and UDL.
And I have a question. Terms like educational design, that's something that is going to be a common term that they're going to use throughout if they advance on to higher ed and start going through education as well. So starting those terms early is important for, okay.
Okay, so the 6 points that you referred to, that's part of,
Some research that was done with other university deans throughout this, throughout the country that did the research. And
The understand your technology, identify your learning objectives, right?
Yep.
Plan for integration, prepare for challenges.
and so is that followed up, those 6 areas, is that going to be followed up in the next class? And
yes, as they get to post-secondary, because this is the 3rd course within the sequence of the courses within the K-12 teaching as a profession pathway. So this would be a course that typically probably a senior would take, late junior, senior would take.
and then leads them to the first education courses they would take at the university. Okay,
Right, like the idea of these courses, as I understand them, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is getting students into a pipeline to learning about what it's like to be an educator, and then moving into college and already being more prepared because they've done these CTE courses earlier to go through get their education degree.
Correct. This was a concurrent enrollment course that.
I'm not sure who's talking right now, but could you speak up a little bit? You're very soft.
Sorry, it's
This
the
is
distance.
Ashley.
Slide it over.
So the purpose of this course was, as we've been building upon the K-12 teaching as a profession pathway, you'll notice that there are courses that are required for students that they have to take in order to get into an education program at the post-secondary level. Request was made that there was another concurrent enrollment option besides the Education 1010 course. I worked with USHE partners to ask what they thought would be the best fit in the sequence of courses for high school kids to get concurrent enrollment that would also lead to one of the requirements needed at post-secondary level. This is the course that they recommended, and that's what we built it upon with this course.
I have a question. Suppose you don't subscribe to the universal design for learning or to the science of learning. because you've read conflicting research on it that shows it's not proven, and just the latest in a long line of education fads. And perhaps you are a very good educator. You're very good at educating students. You have a gift for teaching, but you don't subscribe to these, this one particular line of thought when it comes to educational agendas that are out there. It sounds to me that in creating these pipelines that we are putting barriers in place to opportunity for students who would otherwise be very good at teaching.
I'm not sure that if we're aligning with our USHE partners and the entire purpose of these courses are to get students prepared to go into that pipeline for education, and it's similar, we want to create that foundation so that then when they're there, they're learning the same principles. I'm sure there are wonderful educators that have different theories and ideas about educational design, and I think that that's somewhat the purpose of learning, is that they can take what they have learned in these courses and adapt them and change them if they align with your views.
I would say that this is doing the opposite, that this is forcing one idea, one way of thinking, instead of allowing for diversity in the teaching arena as far as different ways that might work. We talk a lot about diversity, but not a lot about diversity of thought, because we continue to standardize across jurisdictions using the same language and the same philosophers, and teach them as if it is the only way. And I see that becoming highly problematic, and it's narrowing and reducing innovation in the classroom instead of expanding.
I'm not going to argue with you on the contradictories of what was just said, but I would speak against this motion. I think I like what they had originally planned, and I want to stay consistent with the other courses and the educational definitions and even language that they use. If they use education design over lessons planning, I think we should stay consistent with that to help the learner.
And I asked Ashley about this just a little bit ago, but they tried to keep the universal design learning. They picked out 3 principles with that. But when I read them, I'm not hearing exactly what you're saying, Natalie. So I'm trying to understand. Engagement offers multiple strategies. And then it talks about offering a range of methods, and then offers various ways for students to demonstrate and articulate their learning through actions and expression.
Well, if you read the research behind John Hattie and his learning success criteria and learning intentions and the universal design for learning, it is very narrow. The principles that they put here make it appear that it is comprehensive, and that these are broad ideas with lots of flexibility. But if you actually read the research, these terms are very narrowly defined to one way of doing things.
So what is that one way? I'm just curious, what's the one way of doing things?
It's measuring the standard instead of the product, and it's controlling for outcomes so that they can implement these with fidelity to get a proven outcome, or to get a predetermined outcome is more accurately, would be the more accurate way to state that, which doesn't allow for individual creativity or ability or to flourish. It becomes standardizing metrics across jurisdictions where, we're pumping out a product and they all look the same. But the only flexibility or diversity in it is, where's the student at to begin with, so that we can then bring them along until they end up in the same place that everybody else ends up. The personalization is in how to get that every kid that starts at a different place to the same outcome. And that's not okay.
So the outcome for this series of courses would be to prepare the students so that they successfully can matriculate in a higher education program.
According to a system's definition of success, which is a very narrow definition, and not a definition that everybody would agree with.
But if they can't get into a program, they can never become a teacher.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, is that we are putting barriers in place and we are limiting those who can go in to those that will follow the prescribed line of thought and practice. Instead of allowing for individuality, we are creating collective groupthink and collective praxis, so that there is no room for deviation when it comes to thought or practice. And that is the opposite of local control or individuality.
Who will prepare these students to be able to get into a higher education program?
You're right. The whole system is structured to limit, not just our CTE courses, but the way that we are streamlining them into a higher ed pipeline where everything is controlled from top to bottom. Hyper controlled.
Well, how
This
if
is
the
the
students can't
implementation
get
of
into
fidelity,
a higher ed program, then they won't become teachers.
which is the sad part. You're right.
So we've got to design a program that will ensure that they are ready for the next step that's available to them, unless they go out of state or they go someplace else to continue their education. We've got to make sure that we're preparing them for the programs.
But we're not preparing them to think independently and critically like a good teacher should. We are setting up a system that makes them not be able to think critically. Instead, they think in a scripted way, not in a way that they can think outside the box and actually learn and grow and develop and use their human capacity to problem solve and to look for innovative ideas, because everything is scripted for them and they must comply with fidelity or implement with fidelity in order to show that they are quote unquote competent in these areas.
So I'm looking down, sorry, I'm just looking down the principles here. For example, effective feedback is often essential to acquiring new knowledge and skills. Feedback is one of the top things we know that actually, especially immediate feedback. But you're saying by telling kids that if we give you feedback, essential feedback, that we're actually scripting that and that they can't think for themselves by telling them that that's a key piece to helping with education?
It's how it's done. And the feedback that they're looking for is, are they coming more and more in alignment with the script? With what we say is what we define or the system defines as success.
Okay.
It's the sex criteria according to John Hattie. But
Based
John
on what
Hattie is
research
one
did.
person and one thinker and whose research has been proven very flawed. And yet everything we are doing is built on that flawed research.
All right.
So what I've proposed instead, again, allows the teacher to use technology, but use it as a tool for them to become better teachers and not to become automatons in front of the classroom.
It was my understanding this course was created and a lot of the intention is to do exactly what you said. So I think you might be,
The language is written such that, but if you have read the research, you know that they have very definite definitions of what this looks like in practice.
yeah, I'm not seeing, I don't think I see what you see, because I see a course
Oh,
that's trying to help teachers make sure that they're using technology appropriately and not having overuse of technology in their classrooms in this course, so.
Well, and that's my amendments have tried to strike that balance so that technology is a tool, but it doesn't take over the classroom and it doesn't replace the teacher. Because right now we're setting up a system where pretty soon we won't even need the teachers. The technology will do it all for them. I would like to save the teachers' jobs and help them become better teachers
I'm understanding
by
this.
not becoming overly dependent on technology, just like I don't want students to become overly dependent on technology to help to tell them what to think.
If I'm understanding this, the primary purpose in establishing from this strand one, is establish principles that can be applied in education communities or in environments that help the student, which then can be used for technology. So the idea, am I articulating this right? Just as I read back through it, trying to understand, does this work? These are the principles that work in being effective. How can those also be applied to technology? Did I articulate that? Which means that a teacher would understand some of the basic principles that are creating an effective classroom environment. And it can be used in technology too, but they're trying to lay a foundation for teachers before the implementation into technology.
Yeah, that's.
I would say that this is trying to let teachers know technology is not going to fix if you don't understand the underlying way to teach a student.
Right, and that would speak, the concerns that Board Member Klein's having, if I'm understanding, is that we would be turning all the teaching over to technology, but without the teacher having some basic principles of what's effective, then we, in essence, are allowing technology to reign, so to speak, because they become the tool that's used instead of the educator. I think I am ready to vote, so I don't know if others are.
Yep.
Any
Alrighty.
further questions? Board Member Green, did you have any further questions or comments?
No, thank you.
All right. So we have a motion from Board Member Klein to replace the language of strand one as we've just reviewed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed,
No,
no. So that's two in the affirmative, Board Member Green and Board Member Klein, and 3 no votes. All right, next.
I would move to amend strand 2, standard 1, to add at the end of the first bullet point before those sub bullet points, to read including but not limited to. So it would say personal identifiable information, PII, includes information that can be used to distinguish or trace a student's identity either directly or indirectly, including but not limited to. And then it gives the list: student number, name, age or birth date, email address, phone number, location data.
Okay.
And I would speak to that just to say that list is not all inclusive. There's a lot more that is included in there, even though those are the main things.
I do think this is a basic class, but I think adding that does allow students to understand that it could be more extensive than just those basic things. So I think it's a good addition. So.
Okay. All right, any further questions before we vote on that? All those in, okay, so we have a motion to add including but not limited to. And then what was that bottom one?
That's it.
Is that?
Just
That's it.
adding it. But not
Okay.
limited to.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 No,
Okay.
Natalie, on your next amendment, oh, sorry. you probably
So
read
that's
out loud.
4-1, the no vote being Board Member Rio.
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Mayor Booth, typically we don't use, in language for standards and for rules, we don't use including but not limited to. Rather, we just say including, and the not limited to is implied in that. So if we want to be consistent with other standards and rules, we may want to just change it to just including with that.
We've already voted on it, and I think it's best to leave it as is. All right,
Thank-
next motion. And Jenny, maybe you have an idea on this because this is
I just think
something we worked on previously, and I don't remember the
We-
language that was
Yeah, we
chosen.
used language we already had. Can we just say that? And I can read it out that we've already
That would be great.
on this. So it would say, is a federal law that addresses parents' rights regarding their students' education records and defines the conditions under which schools may share education records with third parties. That we already voted on
Yes.
it. So whatever that language is what we need to use. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay, good.
Okay.
So that
So
would
that
need,
can just be fixed, correct?
that would just be in compliance with what we've already voted on.
Yeah. All right, so I would just move ahead then with my next motion, if that's okay.
please.
So it would be for standard 2, I would strike what's there and replace it with research and explain federal, state, and constitutional laws specific to privacy and student data privacy, and the legal requirements and limitations these laws impose on the education system, those within the system, and public or private entities that contract or partner with an aspect of the system. Sorry, I have a typo there on aspect. Hopefully that got corrected.
is there a reason they want them to just focus on Utah code instead of federal?
So.
Because that's a lot to learn about. That would be like an entire course on its own. So I worry that if they're researching both federal and state, that might be a lot for that one standard.
Correct. So
You're-
I, Director of Student Data Privacy, actually helped with writing the strand and standard, and students are going to get education law once they get into post-secondary. So we didn't want to replace what they're already going to learn later on and when they're closer to completing their degree. And so the director thought that it would be more important for them to understand Utah law at this level, and understanding that there are requirements in Utah that you have to abide by with regards to student data privacy. And she said that of any of the laws, those were the 2 specific ones that she would recommend. The other thing she stated was that a teacher isn't going to know everything when it comes to Utah law with regards to student data privacy, because LEAs have departments or individuals that is their job to do that. And so she wanted to make sure it was specific to what a teacher in a classroom would need to know at that level to make sure that the students are safe.
Thank you.
The other thing is we don't have anything listed for state law. I mean, federal law here. We have just those key pieces of the state law. So we'd actually have to add additional
Yeah.
components. Is that right?
Yeah. And we-
Okay.
And the committee just felt that
I-
students are gonna get education law, which is going to go more in depth when it comes to IEPs, 504s, special ed laws, and this sort of stuff, that it wasn't necessary to include all of that in this course.
And when do they get that further training? Is that once they're in college? Because this is the highest class, level class that we have for K-12. Is that correct? The one that we're working on right now?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm good with the way it's written currently, and I went back and forth on this, Natalie, just to kind of compare it to see if saying what needs to be there. But the areas that I have greatest concern with this is just me personally with engagement with districts and other things, is those two pieces of code, especially that first one. Is it approved? Who's approving it? That kind of a thing. So I feel like an emphasis on that area to me really does highlight and articulate the things that need to be drawn out and the things that students need to be aware of right from the start. So I'm actually comfortable with the way the strand was originally written. I'm just trying to see if there's any other comparisons that need to be added there, if that adequately covers it. It seems like it does, where it's a basic class once again.
Just a lot to get through in that one course. It seems keeping it on the state level seems most appropriate.
And the way it's written, it says explore and research how Utah state law and student data privacy impacts the use of technology tools for instruction and legal responsibilities within an LE or a local education agency. And so the focus is on the impacts to technology use for instruction instead of impacts to student privacy.
Right. I don't think that's again the purpose of this course. I mean, you're trying to stuff everything about education into this one little tiny CTE course.
I just think that the focus is the emphasis is on the wrong aspect.
Themselves for what they will learn later, but at this point, it just seems like a lot for the teacher and for this course.
So Natalie, ask your question one more time.
So the focus, the way the standard is written, the focus is on, in my opinion, the wrong aspect. It's saying the impact, how it impacts the use of technology tools for instruction instead of the impact that it has on student data privacy.
But I think, okay, I was just trying to make sure I understood that right. I think it is correct the way it's written, just that we want to know how the technology that's approved, right? So, I mean, I'm just looking at the questions. Where does your LEA list approved technologies? In other words, you've got to check to make sure that this technology has been approved by your district. Right.
And just because technology or an app has been approved doesn't mean that there are protections in place for student privacy. A lot of students are downloading apps at the drop of a hat at the request of their teacher in class. They're hitting the button that says accept or consent, which students don't have a right to do as minors. And they have no idea where the teachers, the LEA, the kids, they have no idea the amount of data that's being collected and where it's going, because the school doesn't control the apps. The app company does.
Yeah. So
the school hasn't contracted with all of the app stores.
That's accurate. So discuss what legal responsibilities are related to technology associated with third-party contractors. Are you feeling like it does not cover that enough there? Because to me, that's where that would be covered.
What part are you looking at?
The third question or bullet, it's discuss what legal responsibilities are related to technology associated with third-party contractors. To me, what you're saying falls under this area where we can tell. To me, this is what this says. Maybe you tell me if I'm wrong.
They're not a third-party contractor. They're just a third party.
But when you ask a student to download something, you are, in essence, you're giving them permission to do the contracting. Does that make sense? You're creating that.
You're letting the students contract with the third-party app?
No, Natalie, listen to what I'm saying. If you're not forming a contract, but you're forming a relationship, it's important that students know, and those students that are going into education, that you can't do the very thing that you're talking about doing, right? That has to be on their approved list. It has to go through some kind of a vetting process. And I can see Patty has her hand up that you don't.
Do we have a rule in place that schools can't use, or that teachers can't have their students download apps if it's not an app or a third party that the district has actually contracted with?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean,
Let's go first bullet, sorry.
go ahead.
And that is why that's listed as the first bullet, right? What are the approved technologies? What is the process? And then what is the legal ramifications if you're doing something that your district has not approved, because they should be aware of the legal ramifications and privacy
Well,
notice.
and if if a student, I mean, even if it's something that's approved, if the student downloads it on their phone, that doesn't mean it's going to, that their data is going to be protected, or that it's running through
Oh,
some platform that's going to protect their data.
I think,
It's kind of a wild, wild west situation.
Yeah.
When it comes to a lot of this technology. And so talking about student data privacy is one thing. Actually, protecting student data privacy is an entirely different thing, which I don't think we've figured out how to wrap our minds around, let alone create policies that actually protect or put in
I'm not sure you're gonna solve that
technology that reins it in.
and I don't think you're gonna solve that through this one standard in a CTE education course.
Okay, so when do we talk about it? If
Well,
not,
let's talk
now?
about
This
it
is
in
a
another
big
meeting,
problem.
but I'm trying to get this course approved so that we can start
I
using.
know, but when do we solve the bigger problem?
I understand
I have
that. I have a lot of
if I
thoughts,
might
but
interject here. So
Yeah.
member Klein, I'm looking at your motion here. And is it implied that you're leaving the bullet points underneath?
Yes.
So that middle column still includes the Utah code, 53E9309 requires
Mhm.
LEAs and so forth, right? You're
Yeah.
just rewriting
The
where
standard.
you've okay, the standard and the strand. So I don't take big issue with the revision that member Klein has done, only because I think all of us can acknowledge how much federal law affects state law, influences local, law, code, policy, whatever you want to put there. And so I see it as a good partnership, a good expansion. I don't see it being cumbersome. I see it making more sense. I feel like it would help students in a big way understand how it's a big puzzle and how those pieces fit together. So if the bullet points stay, I am in support of member Klein's motion.
Board member Green, I'm not sure I'm seeing the same bullet points as you then, because I don't see any bullet points that address federal. Maybe you could direct me to where you're seeing that, because I don't see that.
Does there have to be a bullet point specifically for that in order for it to be, for a teacher to cover it, simply because it's stated in the standard? Like, not all the standards,
Well, normally,
but because it's mentioned in the standard, the assumption is that they would cover it to some extent.
well, they would want to know what to cover. That's why I think it's articulated in the bullet points down below is, I guess if you wanted to just leave it explain federal laws, I guess you could do that for an educator, but I don't think it creates the clarity that I think you're wanting.
Well, and I'm more than happy to add another bullet point in if we want, in order that is included.
We could
Point for FERPA and Constitution.
Deputy Superintendent Norm.
This is not exclusive or what Natalie Klein member Klein's previous motion was.
Right. Chair,
Yes, please.
may I? Okay. One of the things that I wanted to speak to is that all schools, so if we talk about a federal requirement, we have a requirement if schools want to receive E-rate. And that E-rate is that they have to be SIPA compliant. And what that means is the Children's Internet Protection Act. And if they want to receive funds for these types of things, what that means is that in order to get funds federally, then they have to adopt and implement an internet safety policy addressing, and then there's bullet points about what they have to do. They have to make sure that, the access by minors to inappropriate matter on the internet, safety and security, unauthorized, access. There's a whole list that they have to make sure, and every school has to have this in order for them to receive those E-rate funds. And so I just wanted to make sure that that is brought up. I put a link to that SIPA compliance in the chat if anyone else wanted to look at that.
So Pat, are you suggesting adding that to this? That's all I'm saying is that we can change the heading of the standard, but we don't have any points with it.
I mean, FERPA is mentioned in standard 1. So it's just reflecting back on the first standard and then adding 2. So it's just building upon, it's not like they haven't heard of FERPA. It's just saying, you know, there are the federal laws like FERPA from Standard 1, as well as constitutional and state laws that then Standard 2 focuses in more on. So it's just kind of a reiteration of Standard 1 and then building upon that for Standard 2. And to Patty's point, you know, I'm on the Student Data Privacy Advisory Committee, and you know, in one of our meetings with a senator that was heavily involved in the Utah, putting the Utah law in place to strengthen the FERPA law. I asked him directly who oversees that the data is protected in the way the law requires. Like, whose job is it to, for enforcement to verify that that's happening? And he had no answer. He said, I mean, mostly he just sat there in silence for a minute and then said that that would take an army of people working 365 days a year, and that's just not practical. And so I said, so what you mean is no one's really overseen to ensure that student data privacy laws are adhered to? And he said, no, that's like, it's not even possible, which is super concerning.
So are you wanting to add, that's what I'm asking, because to me, it keeps it succinct with leaving it the way it is. I'm not suggesting that we don't need federal in there, but if without bullet points, to me, there's no reason to add that in, is to keep it succinct. You talk about the FERPA law up above, it's not eliminating that.
So let's add a bullet point that says the Fourth Amendment that entitles individuals to the privacy of their personal affects, that their personal information cannot be data mined, or, you know, they can't come into your house and search your things without a search warrant. They shouldn't be able to do that with your data. So I have mentioned constitutional laws in there for that specific reason. And so if
Is that a formal motion then?
let's put an extra bullet point in there that says FERPA and constitutional laws.
Do we feel like SIPA should be in there?
And SIPA,
I was just
fine,
looking
and
at
the
This is.
and any other applicable federal laws.
So unnecessary to get this
Wait.
granular.
So, okay. Once again, I do think this is a basic course. So what is the basic information? To just say any federal laws that are applicable? I don't know that that's.
Well, that's why I put research and explain. I mean, you could just mirror what I have in the standard in the bullet point. Let them discover what's out there.
Well, and I just want to highlight, we were just saying, this is the higher level class, and now we're saying this is only a CTE class.
Right.
So what is it? I don't see, I advocate that if this is the highest level class and we are going next level, I absolutely see this as appropriate. I don't see it cumbersome. I see it enough as an introduction.
What is
And
your recommendation then?
I think the bullet point that Member Klein is putting together, she's put the bullet point that says what she just said. Member Klein motion to amend :
And you know,
You're
this is
meaning just
all
the
of this is really
introduction?
foundational when it comes to data privacy. If we're going to have a strand on data, we might as well, you know, not dumb it down and just, you know, let them know what all the pieces and parts are. Why not? Otherwise, it looks like we're excluding certain things because they're inconvenient, perhaps.
Well, I don't think that's why they wouldn't be included in
Well,
there.
so let's put it in so that we avoid the misperception of trying to avoid certain things.
What is the amendment?
Like I said, you could just repeat what I have in the standard, the language that's there.
And again, I just want to clarify the right column that's getting worked on right now on our screen. We are adding those bullet points though, right? So we're adding Member Klein motion to amend, include an additional bullet point. We're adding that, but that will be underneath the other bullet points.
Correct.
Is that correct, Member Klein?
Yes, or we could make it the first bullet point so that it mirrors the order of the standard.
Sure.
Chair, I have a question that is a technical question on here.
Go
May I?
ahead.
So right now, Board Member Klein, are all of your amendments going to be coming from your what's on this table? Or are they going to be coming from your draft 2 Klein amendments from December? Because they are different.
Most of them come from my previous draft.
So will you note for us when they come from your previous draft or this one? Because this one here is different than what you have on your draft 2. And so we're not sure which ones to pull over when you're talking.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that it didn't get through. I did submit it on the 21st with that explanation, so I assumed that it would be uploaded as I made my recommendation on Clearback on the 21st. So I'll try to just, I'm going off what I sent in on the 21st. I've got that up in front of me. And so if it's different than what's on.
So that is different.
So I've got my draft up and I can see that much better than what the spreadsheet you have up. So to switch between the two of research and explain.
The draft that you see right now.
Yeah, I can see your spreadsheet and it looks the same as what I just read from my draft.
So the draft 2 proposed changes that you submitted on the 21st start out research Utah code to understand legal obligations.
No, so that's not what I submitted on the 21st.
That's the document. Okay.
Well,
So what I submitted on the 21st has my amendments. If there were changes from what we did earlier in December, or it refers back to what we did earlier in December. So if you're looking at
clarify, did you add federal items to it under the privacy?
No.
What are we looking for? That's what I'm wondering.
The document I submitted on the 21st has some new changes based on what the writing committees redid. And then I made other amendments on here that refer back to draft 2 from our meeting at the beginning of December, saying to bring in those old amendments.
Yes, but in this, this specific one, did you have federal recommendations that you had from that we're trying to transfer over?
No, I did. All I had was the standard.
Change in the strand, right? The standard.
Yep, the standard 2. That's all I originally submitted, but you're asking for a bullet point, so.
Well, that's what I thought. That's what we were looking for, is that you'd made previous changes or something on that.
Not on this one.
Okay. Katie.
So for final clarification, we will only be working from the 21st document, and throughout the rest of this document, it doesn't go back to the draft before. So there was the draft before, and then there was the 21st. The only time that was mentioned was in the very beginning, but we don't go back.
There are more references in the 21st document back to the draft at the beginning of December.
That's what we'll need to know. That's the piece that we'll need. Okay, thank you.
Member Klein, if you wanted, what are the 2 or 3 things or whatever, I don't know, that you were interested in adding with federal?
So federal, constitutional, SIPA, PPRA, that's another one.
Chair Booth, may I?
Please.
I know you can't see my hand. That's why I'm asking at the same time. So is that a good way, a protocol to follow?
That's great.
We now have Katie Chalice, who is online, if you wanted her to review these as those federal designations of what student privacy is. She hasn't been on for the conversation. So Board Member Klein, if you want to speak to it, and then Katie Chalice is over data privacy, then she may be able to make sure those are correct, or that there's nothing that's missing.
I'm fine with what I've proposed.
Thank you.
So you're just fine with just making a change to the introduction, but not even including anything underneath
No,
that?
I said on the bullet, we can add a bullet point that includes FERPA, SIPA, PPRA, and constitutional and constitution. So they can be separate bullet points, or they can just be all of those in one bullet point. Research these and then list those.
Member Klein,
Yes.
could we hear if we have overlooked something from the federal level?
If there's something if there's a specific law that I've missed, I would love to hear what that is. But I'm not looking for commentary. Just to make sure that we've included all applicable laws.
So may we hear from Superintendent Norman? Could we hear what she was
You
going
can
to
ask
say?
her if you want, but
Yeah.
Yeah, Katie would be the best one to speak to that, with what they have to do, and then what is something that they haven't done on there. So they all have to have that signed data privacy agreement, you know, a DPA, those types of things. So Katie, do you have enough information to answer that question? Specifically,
everyone.
Specifically, this is regarding apps and what is, I think, downloaded on computers, and whether who has that authority. The parents need to make sure, and a student can't approve themselves. They need to have a parent approval. But I think Board Member Klein, if you want to ask your questions, that when you asked a legislator or someone and they said that there's no one who oversees that, if you want to explain that part.
I wasn't planning on going into that right here. I just want to add the bullet point that has, and if you go to the U.S. Department of Ed, it includes those, I think 4 areas that I mentioned. That's everything they list. So if we can just add the bullet point, the other is a side conversation that is not appropriate for the motion that we are on.
What's that? What's not appropriate to ask for clarification?
On the app aspect, like that's not what we're on right now.
On the app aspect, sorry.
Well, she was asking if I wanted to ask Katie
Okay.
Thomas about something unrelated to what we're working on right here, and I would rather just stay focused on what we're working on right here.
I do have a question for Katie. PPRA, is that part of FERPA? I didn't think it was part of FERPA.
No, and is it okay if I speak, Chair?
Please do. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. Fun to be in standards and assessment. I haven't been here before. So PPRA is different from FERPA, but that's the law that protects against asking students certain questions on protected topics, primarily through surveys. But I would say, so Utah has their own version of PPRA that is more restrictive than PPRA, which is the 53E-9-203.
Which
So-
that's right.
What's that?
Which we included on this list. Yeah.
Which is included, yeah. So my feeling would be that PPRA would be unnecessary because it's actually a little more permissive than the Utah version. So I would say you could leave that one off, but still have the ideas covered.
I would still like it on there because I think it's important that students know and future teachers know what they should not be asking.
Okay, I guess my thoughts on that, Member Klein, would be if you want the teachers to know the more restrictive version. Here's an example.
I'm
53E9.
I'm sorry. I just feel like this is out of order. Like I'm having to debate.
Out of order.
I just want to make the motion
Ordered right.
and vote on it.
Natalie,
Chair-
Chair, I'm ruling that this is not out of order. We have board members who want this clarification, want more information, so we'll continue. Thank you. Go ahead. Katie, could you explain the
Thanks.
PPR and the
Yeah,
or
so
restrict?
You bet. So the Utah version, the 53E-9-203, says basically everything that PPRA does, except it has stricter notification requirements. And it also, the federal version says, oh, you need to notify parents of surveys only if these surveys are tied to a federal program. Utah's version, 50E3-9-203, says, nope, it doesn't even matter if it's tied to a federal program or any other type of survey. You still need to give federal parent notification. So I think the risk of including PPRA is that it could cause confusion.
It's still federal law though.
It
And
is.
it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we are not beholden to it, even if we have a law that is supposedly stronger, which is also debatable. But it's still a federal law. It's on the US Department's website. We're not exempt from that law. So I would like it added, included in the list of federal laws in the bullet point. Thank you.
And I guess the way I see that is that we see how states have their sovereignty and we vote on laws and it, you know, it's the federal, it's the state, it's the local. And again, back to that, it's a big puzzle, but it all fits together. And I think it's a great example actually of how federal's a little bit more loose, Utah a little bit more tight. So, and I do appreciate that clarification that was given. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm ready.
I actually would, I don't mind adding some of the federal in and other components. I don't feel like, I think this could be brought before the full board next week. I feel like just kind of winging it right here without thoroughly knowing what's going in there, how much. Once again, this is while I understand this is an upper level class, it is still a high school course, and to know exactly what's in there at this point, I'd like to move forward the original. I'm not making a motion for that. We can vote one way or the other. I have no problems with putting the federal in, but I do have a problem with us just kind of adding things here and there. And I feel like a clean motion for the board coming forward, that it can be amended next week at this point where it doesn't line up real well with what's on the standard. So that's
And
where I'm
giving
at.
board members a chance to look through the entire course
Well,
content, see if it's important in that space.
I would,
Pretty robust, like an educational law, course at this point. And it's again, a CTE high school course, setting up foundations for them to take college level education courses.
And I'd be happy to work with someone on that, Katie or one of the board members, but I don't know that just winging it right here is really what we need to be doing. So
I would argue that it's not winging it. These are the exact federal laws that are listed on the US Department of Ed's website under data privacy. We're not saying that the kids have to be experts in all of these. We are saying they need to know that these all exist and have some familiarity that with their terms, whether or not they become experts in every one of these laws while they're in this class. But to know that they are there, that they exist, we're not winging anything. And we keep talking out of both sides of our mouth saying it's too much for this course. But we want foundational. Well, these are foundational. So are we?
I'm happy to work on
You think
amendment.
the kids are not capable of understanding a simple list of different laws
Honestly,
without having to explain them all? Is that too much to put 4 things on a bullet point?
Board Member Klein, that's not what anyone said. I didn't hear that from anyone. I'm happy to work with an amendment with someone moving forward next week, but I'm not at this point. I'd like to see what that looks like and maybe.
I'm sorry.
spread out a little bit.
You just said it. I'm trying not to be, I really am trying to have a rational conversation here, but we're saying we need foundational, but we don't want to wing it. These aren't arbitrary laws. They're a simple direct list of laws that pertain to data privacy at the federal level. I don't understand what is so controversial or confusing. And if we leave something out, then again, it gives the appearance that we are cherry picking and that there are certain ones we are not putting on for whatever reason, and then it looks suspect. So why not just err on the side of transparency or more information? Why less? Why would we want to put less if it's just simply a list?
We're ready to vote?
Yep.
All right. So we have Member Klein's motion to amend, including, let's see, probably to amend, including additional bullet point that would include research, federal, constitutional, CIPA, PPRA, and FERPA. So is that the amendment? Just that bullet point is the amendment? Then we go back.
No, and then it would, no, wouldn't it be changing the standard and the, maybe clarify with Board Member Klein?
Yeah.
The standard and the bullet points would be together or not? Is that two separate? Board Member Klein on? Board Member
Board
Klein, are
Member
you there?
Klein,
Maybe
Klein.
you're muted. We can't hear you.
So sorry about that. I was muted. Yeah, we can just do it all together.
Okay, great. Right, if we can get back to Strand 2, Standard 2. The motion is that, well, that it read, research and explain federal, state, and constitutional laws specific to privacy and student data privacy and the legal requirements and limitations these laws impose on the education system, those within the system, and public or private entities that contract or partner with an aspect of the system. And the bullet point there's that green up there in 5 in 4 that bullet point
I think that's,
for collecting or sharing students.
that's separate.
That's separate.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the actual bullet point that we've already discussed, which would, it's not just the list, but Natalie clarified that it was research, right? Research, federal, constitutional, CIPA, PPRA.
Maybe we should say identify
Okay.
federal laws, including.
Okay. Federal laws, including constitutional, CIPA, PPRA, and FERPA.
Yep, that works.
Okay. That's the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? No.
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 No,
So it's 2 ayes. Board Member Green and Board Member Klein.
I'm sorry, what was that?
2 yeses from Board Member Klein and Board Member Green, and 3 noes.
And if someone wants to work on an amendment, please reach out to me because I'll see what I can come up with that is usable. Do you have an amendment for under Utah code?
I do. I would move that under Utah Code 53E9203 that we add after the word asking, the words for, comma, collecting, comma, or sharing. So it would read, requires educators to get prior written consent from the student's guardian before asking for, collecting, or sharing students, let's see, asking for, collecting, or sharing students' personal or family information regarding. So we need to strike out the for after students.
Is that language, did you bring that from code? Does it have that in there, or is it just you can't ask? I'm just wondering.
Well, you're supposed to, I mean, they're supposed to get prior written consent before gathering that information, whether it's through asking or collecting the data or sharing it. There's supposed to be consent. So this just expands that so that it's articulating all the aspects of how that data is what data is gathered in, or the different ways that it is gathered, whether it's asking the student for it or just collecting it, and then sharing it.
Do we want to use the term that's in the law instead of putting asking, collecting, or sharing? We'd just be using the legal language, which is reveal information is what they use.
No, because the system and the technology is set up so that it can gather, collect, and share without revealing things that without the student or parent knowing that things are being revealed. The computer can do it all on its own through the interoperable systems that are being created to push and pull data. And that in large part circumvents the written consent process. And that needs to be, we need to rein that in so that receiving consent doesn't get bypassed.
Right. Thank you for that clarification on that amendment. Any questions? Any further questions? If not, we have Member Klein's motion to amend bullet point as follows. Utah Code 53E-9-203 requires educators to get prior written consent from a student's guardian before asking for, collecting, or sharing students' personal or family information regarding. So it would be the addition, asking for, collecting, or sharing. So would that be students possessive apostrophe, students personal, or individual is student apostrophe S? I guess it's a group of students. So
I mean, you could say student or family information,
okay.
Personal student, student, maybe just putting personal student or family information.
Okay.
If
Personal
that works.
family information. Okay. Any further questions or comments?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Do you want to take the personal, strike personal after for? So it's just personal, student, or family information.
Okay, student singular, personal student singular. Okay, personal student or family information. Is that good, Natalie?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those in favor, those opposed?
No.
We have board member Reel as a no. Okay, next.
Then I would move on strand 3 to replace the entirety of strand 3 with my previous strand 3 from draft 2. Is that on the document? Or are they pulling it over?
We did this, the strand 3 verbiage is there, but you want all the standards underneath it also. Is that what you're saying?
What I had for strand 3 previously is what I would like here for this strand 3.
So strand 3, as it reads now, is students will identify and explain how technology tools can assess, engage, and support student academic learning needs and evaluate how technology framework enhance student outcomes and teacher effectiveness to meeting learning intentions. Is that
So would you like
Okay.
me to read what mine is? And again, mine is the entirety of strand 3, which includes standard 1, standard 2, standard 3, and the strand 3 performance skill.
But your verbiage for strand 3 is a little bit different than your December version. Can you see that on the screen?
So this is what I would, this is what I am asking for, yes.
I like the way that it was written here in the updated version on this new draft. I think it says a lot of what you were trying to say in more concise way. And I like how it uses the technology framework, enhance student outcomes. But the evaluation of the technology frameworks and that language and those terms align more with what all is said throughout the standards.
Okay, so I am, sorry, I'm looking, you have two different, I see where you're saying there's, so what you have in the right-hand column is different than what's in that third column. And what are you saying that, so
Correct.
what I submitted on the 21st just says to go back to what I had previously submitted, so.
Yes.
which-
And so strand 3 of what you previously had submitted was what you're seeing in the far right column. And the
far
the
right
other one,
column, sorry, what I submitted is what's in the third column, not what I'm seeing in the far right column. You see it ends with student academic learning. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
but yeah, you said that then it goes back to the previous one. So that's what we needed to know. Is it from the one you submitted on the 21st, and the 21st says to go back to the previous one, which is then in the far right column?
Correct. I just don't know where the third column came from. But yeah. So it would read, students will identify technology usage and evaluate technology tools based on student academic need. Use. So supplement student academic. No, it should be needs. Or learn, I don't know. I don't remember which one it was supposed to be, but I have it in standard 1. It says, so yeah, you can leave it the way it is right there. So in the standard, it's student academic learning needs, and then down in standard 1, identify how the limited use of different types of educational technology can enhance traditional classroom instruction by an educator to help meet student academic needs. And then plan and organize. Sorry, I'm looking at what I did, and it's different than what you have in the right-hand column. So I'm just trying to figure out where that came from. So identify, and then, so yeah, that's the old, okay. So you've got the old, it's the blue. It's what's in blue.
So I have up on this shared screen now. This is the referring back to draft 2. And then this is the December document, December 21st document. Here it says replace entirety of strand with my previous strand 3. So if we go to this one, then we copied
Is
over
that
the
the
strand.
blue? Does that have blue writing on it? The draft that you're pulling from? The blue
There's
is
no
what
blue
you need to be
writing.
pulling from.
So
There's a
we're
draft
pulling,
with blue writing. Instead of the red and green, it's the blue. That's where we're getting confused. So I submitted one with to Andrea that
so
has
this is the
blue edition.
Okay, so this is the 21st document that I'm showing right now that you submitted. So when we're going to previous strand 3, that wasn't from the December meeting.
And is Andrea there?
Go-
Where's the document? The last document that I sent to Andrea for our December meeting had blue type on it.
So Patty.
I made changes before our December meeting. That
Are you aware? So this is what I have in the document. And so I have draft 2 Klein proposed.
Yeah, draft 2, December.
if you go
Yeah, and I don't
have the blue type in it.
No, I don't have one with blue type in it.
Andrea, can you find the one with blue type and send that, because that's where the confusion is.
Can
We can't
you
be
send
going-
me that? Can you forward me that in an email and I will,
It-
because I don't see it on here.
It's in it's in the January 3rd folder. It's called draft 2 Klein proposed changes for principles of education.
It's still the red green.
Can you scroll down? It looks like there's
There's blue.
Okay, there's blue. So let's go to strand 3. So it would be draft 2. Okay, so they're titled the same, but they have different things on them. So let me close out of this one. Let me pull over this one. Moving back to the motions document, we'll pull this. And then we will insert this, correct?
it's just the blue that we need.
Just the blue. So
well, there is some green. As long as it's not stricken, then you can take from both colors, because green was what I had originally submitted, and then I added the blue changes after. And so
I'm going to pull that over to the table. And is this table right here then what you'd like then? So it has red, green, and blue.
Yeah.
And then I have it just for strand 3 and that's it. Very good.
correct. I think this is right. So
Okay.
standard 1,
Perfect.
thank you. Standard 1 should read, identify how the different types of educational technology can supplement traditional classroom instruction by an educator to help meet student academic needs. Did that read the same as what you have on the screen? Ooh, where'd it go? Is it coming back? Okay. All right. Okay, and then first bullet point under standard 1 reads traditional class. I don't know if you can scroll to that. Is it showing? Oh, yes. Traditional classroom instruction includes printed material, paper and pencil instruments, manipulatives, and direct teacher instruction. The second bullet point would be identify different types of supplemental educational technology and provide examples of how it may be effectively paired with traditional instruction. Okay, I don't know if somebody's making sure it's correct on the screen, because I'm reading from my paper to make sure that we're getting the right verbiage. And then down on standard 2, the last bullet point would read, is that up there? starts with evaluate how technology frameworks and models can supplement and support effective teacher instruction. Okay, is that up there? I'm sorry, I can't hear anybody.
Yeah.
It's
they're
up there.
adding it.
Uh-huh.
They're adding it. to the motion.
Okay. And then standard 3 would read, identify how technology can supplement and support instruction to accommodate each student's special physical or cognitive needs. So there's an extra with in there that needs to be taken out. So again, standard 3 would read, identify how technology can supplement and support instruction to accommodate each student's special physical or cognitive needs. Are you are you back on the other draft again without the blue?
No, it has the blue.
There.
So is it being pulled over or what's happening? Okay,
Low to load.
okay. All right, so I just read standard 3. And then the first bullet point under standard 3 would read, evaluate common accessibility software to support students with special physical or cognitive needs. For example, and then in parentheses, screen reader, screen magnifiers, screen contrast, voice recognition, voice amplification devices. Okay, and then the first sub-bullet point, disability as a physical or cognitive impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. And then striking the second bullet point, the third bullet point would read linguistic needs as providing, well, that one stays the same. I didn't make any changes on that one. And then the fourth sub-bullet point is stricken. And then the second bullet point under standard 3 would read, discuss how the accessibility and effectiveness of technology tools may differ based on students' unique learner characteristics. Sorry, that part's stricken. Based on students' special needs or special physical or cognitive needs. Sorry. Is that up there where you can see it? Okay. And then it would go down to strand 3, performance skill, would read, students will observe a classroom and use a technology framework or model to examine the effect of supplementary technology usage on students. The first bullet point remains the same. The second bullet point would read, observe the supplemental use of technology in the classroom. Third bullet point, evaluate and document the effectiveness of supplemental technology usage using the selected framework or model. And then that final paragraph, students will research how technology can support students with disabilities and create a presentation recommending effective technology educational supports for students with disabilities. And that's the end of my changes.
Any questions or comments? We're ready to vote?
Is learner characteristics another one of the terms that is used in educational courses and standard 3 standard,
But it's the one.
Strand 3
in December, correct?
yeah.
Yeah, because that's the problem, is this one's changed quite a bit with the verbiage from
Yeah.
what the new verbiage is.
So if possible, can I explain the outline of the new strand, please?
It's hard to hear.
Sorry, so with the new Strand 3, how we tried to align it into the course is that in Standard 1, it identifies how you are going to use different types of technologies that go back to the science of learning and meeting those principles of those students. Then in Strand 2, or excuse me, Standard 2, we go a little bit deeper and we discuss the academic needs and using the different types of technologies to meet those academic needs and wanting to emphasize the difference between passive consumption versus active consumption when you're using technology. And then Standard 3, you go a little bit deeper and you investigate how those technology tools can supplement that classroom instruction that Board Member Klein referred to as that traditional classroom instruction with regards to the accessibility that technology can provide for your students with disabilities, academic learning needs, as well as linguistic needs that we're seeing within the state. And then the final standard is that analyze those technology frameworks and allowing students to go and observe how that is used in a classroom, and then also giving them the option to either talk to a special ed educator and how they're using that with their students to meet those needs, or creating or researching how they can use technology to support the learning needs of the students. So that's kind of how that was restructured based off of the standards in December. If that
So it aligns well
Yes,
with what has
is
been
now
already up on
done.
the
So
other.
it's not like, oh, here we have Strand 1 talking about science of learning and UDL, and that's the only time, but reflecting back on that technology piece and the foundational piece of how students learn.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question because board member Earl submitted some questions that were then responded to prior to this meeting in an email. And it was actually, they had referenced the set of standards that we were working on, but instead of calling them the principles of educational instruction, they referred to it as principles of educational technology, which is what it sounds like. The writing committee has rewritten them to be specific to technology, which is not what the title was before. And I don't know if that's changed. I don't see that it's changed on what we were given from the writing committee.
Board Member Klein,
Uh-huh.
Ashley's indicating that she incorrectly put it on there as that.
Technology.
Okay, but from
Yeah.
the way that it has been rewritten, it sounds like that is where the writing committee was going. And that it, you know, if that's where these standards are going, where it is specific to the technology, then it should probably be titled the way she wrote it in the email, to be so that it's not misleading, because instruction implies a teacher is doing the teaching. Principles of educational technology is something very different. And so I have submitted my amendments so that we do not eliminate the teacher instruction, that we keep that as a core part of a classroom and not just turn things over into technology and kids into autonomous learners that don't need a teacher, that can just be plugged into a computer and everything they need is right there. And the teacher simply becomes a facilitator of the tech. And that is, again, why I am submitting still and feel very strongly that we have balance in here, that we bring back the teacher aspect and the traditional aspect in using technology as supplementary and not the focus, while still teaching the students how to use technology in an effective way, but so that the teacher doesn't become, so that technology doesn't become a crutch for the teacher, or the teacher doesn't become dependent on the technology. I mean, consider what if you have a power outage, a short-term or a long-term power outage, and suddenly the teachers and the students cannot function because they've been so heavily trained on and become so dependent on the technology. If we want teachers to truly be able to teach and students not to become addicted to technology for not just entertainment, but for their learning, and to be able to learn and interact human to human in normal and natural ways, and not have it be contrived or scripted by a machine or by an algorithm or somebody that is a education philosophy or framework that is so strict that they don't know how to function without it.
And unless
Otherwise, we're crippling our students and teachers.
my understanding is that, and from what I read through here, is that that's the reason why we have this class, is to create that very balance that you're talking about. Because to not acknowledge that there is productive use of technology would be also as harmful as acknowledging only technology could be used.
Right. And that's why I've tried to create that balance and acknowledge both, bring both elements in, and not have it be strictly a focus on technology to the elimination of the other aspect, that human aspect that where teachers actually teach and not just facilitate tech.
Even with the students, because I've seen this happen with the passive and active, right? Where technology can be used in a very productive way with the active, instead of just the passive, where kids are just on doing stuff, right? Where they're actually using the technology to engage in the process of what they're doing, whether that's through a quiz or an assessment. I just saw that yesterday, actually. All students were able to answer. And then the teacher walked through the problem after it was a prep quiz for the actual end of the semester assessment. But it was very effective because all the students were able to engage at the same time in the process and work through things. So I think they've struck a balance, I feel like. Personally, I felt that you worked hard on this and that you have concerns. As I went back through it, I feel like there was that balance in there. And I especially liked.
I don't see the balance. Where is the direct teacher instruction free from technology in the standards, or where the technology is just used in a supplementary way, an enhancing way, instead of being the main focus? Because that's all I see without my amendments.
I see it.
That's all it is.
The whole first section talks about the components of
it's UDL.
What's that? Well, and you have there may be disagreements on how that is implemented. Anyways, we can vote.
We can vote.
I'm ready to vote.
All right. How should we? Let's see. How shall we vote?
So the amendment is to replace all of strand 3, right? With your previous motions.
Correct.
Is that right, Natalie? Okay.
Correct.
Sorry, board member Klein.
All right.
And it's been on the screen. Do you want him to read through it?
She already read through it all.
Okay.
Yeah, she did. All right. So all those in favor of Member Klein's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no.
No.
No. So we have Member Klein and Member Green as ayes, and the other 3 as noes. All right. Where are we now? Strand 4.
All right, I would move to replace the entirety of strand 4 with what I previously submitted as strand 4. the blue version. And then, yeah. So I can find that and I can
Again,
share that.
Yeah, I worry about going back to the previous. It's just not gonna align in the same way.
All right, I would move to read, and I will read strand 4 as I am proposing it. Strand or students will use technology to develop a professional presence online and explore learning networks. Standard 1. Most of that stays the same. I would change this first bullet point, second sub bullet point to explore professional learning networks instead of engage in. And then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the sixth sub bullet point, strike curate, and I think I added develop. I don't know that I changed the color of that. So it would read develop a professional presence online. And then the rest stays the same on standard 1, jump down to standard 2. And it would read identify strategies educators can use to foster the limited and safe use of technology in the classroom and facilitate focused learning by minimizing disruption and mitigating distraction. And the bullet points I have replaced with the following: limit use of technology to short blocks of time, have students tilt their laptop screens down while you're teaching, walk around the classroom to keep students accountable, use platforms that lock students' screens, limit the number of technological tools in use at a time, and communicate clearly and frequently about when and why to use a device, as well as why not to use a device. Standard 3 would read, explore a variety of professional learning opportunities to pursue those that support, let's see, that support, I have a mess up here. Okay, that are, so take out support and put the word are. So it says to pursue those that are proven to help students achieve mastery in foundational academics. Did somebody get that correction?
Yeah, it's right there.
Okay, and then so you can see some of the bullet points have been eliminated. What's left is on the bullet points, identify opportunities provided by professional learning networks. And the second bullet point, determine whether these opportunities promote time-tested methods of academic instruction backed by empirical evidence and sound research. And then strand 4 performance skill would read, students will create a 5 to 10 minute professional development presentation on a specific skill needed to develop a professional online presence. And the bullet points are as follows: identify a specific skill to focus on for the presentation, consider the needs of the audience, model the use of technology in the presentation, evaluate presentation for strengths and weaknesses. And the last one, write specific ways to improve your presentation skills going forward. That is my motion.
I do wish that the amendments came from what was rewritten on this entire course, because it doesn't work with what the goal of this strand 4 is, which is talking about learning management systems, right? And learning how to develop the coursework within the learning management system. But it looks like what you're proposing in your amendments is not at all the same as what is in the newest version, because the newest version is talking more about how to use the learning management tool, develop a course, etc. And seems like what's been in this motion here proposed is very, very different and wouldn't align with the course where how it's laid out now.
No, it was aligned with the previous,
Right, well, we're not working on the previous one anymore. We're working on the new version.
I know, and there were
It doesn't
aspects,
work anymore because.
there were aspects of the rewrite that, and I did not ask that it be rewritten. I had all my amendments done before it was rewritten. I don't know why,
I understand that, but
all
they
of
do
our
put
work
an
goes,
amendment
you know.
in there, right? I just want to make sure you're aware of that. It
Yes,
doesn't. your amendment is-
I understand, and my amendments were very intentional to bring it back and bring balance back to these standards, so that they are not hyper focused on the technology aspect, but again, bring balance so that we empower our teachers and our students to be actual teachers and actual learners that aren't solely dependent on technology to be able to teach and to learn.
Well, just doesn't. fit
Ashley,
in the
did you
course,
have a
so.
comment?
I was just gonna say, the original standards in December had 5 strands. If you notice, the new standards only have 4. And so the strands and standards that Board Member Klein is referring to, that was actually completely removed in the new strands and standards for that year.
And my amendments add a strand 5.
Yeah.
Which is the LMS that Board Member really referred.
So the learning management system just helps them start to build what
Right.
that.
That's
Yep.
like.
And that's what my that's what my strand 5 adds back in, is the LMS.
In the December strands and standards, if you look at strand 5, that is the standards with regards to creating a LMS system.
Right.
In the standards, that is now strand 4, because in the December standards, the strand 4 was removed. And so the LMS strand went from strand 5 to strand
Yeah.
4.
Right. So I'm not eliminating the LMS. I'm just putting it back as strand 5 so that we can keep the strand 4 that I previously had put forward.
Okay, thank you. All right, any questions regarding the motion, the amendments? All right, let's vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say no.
No.
No,
No,
all right.
I would move to add strand 5 as I had previously submitted, and I will read that.
So you're duplicating what we just approved then. Is that what I'm understanding? Because you said your strand 5 would be standard 3 and strand 4. So you're asking to have a duplication.
Then I would amend, or I would amend what we just approved, as far as, yeah, what is now strand 4, I would amend with this language from my previous strand 5. And it would read, students will develop and design a traditional classroom instruction course and a course within a learning management system, accessible for all students, to support student academic needs. Standard 1 would read, students will develop and design their own lesson plan for traditional classroom instruction. First bullet point, steps to building your lesson plan. And then it has sub bullet points for each of these. Identify the objectives for the lesson. What do you hope to accomplish by the end of the period? Are there specific things that your students should know or be able to do? Consider the age and ability of students. Make plans that are doable but stretch the students' abilities. Next bullet point, determine how you will present. Consider a variety of presentation and engagement methods for presenting new material or reviewing past material that will contribute to greater understanding of the foundational concepts of the lesson. Plan ways to involve your students whenever possible. For example, ask students to answer questions, come to the board and solve problems, take turns reading out loud, use props, act out stories, give an oral presentation, class spelling bee, etc. Next bullet point, plan for needed resources, materials, and teacher evaluation methods. Make a list and gather the resources and materials you'll need to teach the lesson, such as paper, pens, books, rulers, manipulatives, crafts, pictures, supplementary technology, etc. Plan ways to evaluate student understanding at the end of the lesson. Next bullet point, instruct and present information. Set the stage for what you'll be teaching. Present the information and concepts to your students in meaningful ways using the resources and materials you've included in your lesson plan. Next bullet point, allow for student practice. Three practice methods when worked in order. So allow for student practice. 3 practice methods that when worked in order are a good way to reinforce what you've just taught. Guided practice. Take students back through what they just learned and let them add their own input as they gain confidence with the new information. Partner practice. Students explore new concepts with a partner or group while teacher circulates among the class, offering additional instruction or clarification. Independent practice. After partner practice, it's time for students to practice what they've learned on their own. Adapt independent practice according to the material you've just presented, such as using worksheets or having students write a short essay. Next bullet point, ending the lesson. Finish the lesson with a quick wrap up. Do a brief overview of the lesson, including the main concepts the class learned. Ask students to identify the key ideas as a refresher and leave them with a preview of the next lesson so they know what to expect. And the final bullet point, evaluate the lesson depending on the results. Your next lesson plan may include a review of information before moving on to new material. Periodically create quizzes or tests specific to lesson material to gauge learning and positively motivate students. And then standard 2 is on the learning management system with a few edits. So it would read, students will identify principles of online design, explain how a well-designed LMS course can increase student ease of access to learning materials. Design elements include, and then just the first bullet point on there is amended to read images of people, and the rest of that remains the same. We skip down to standard 3 under the assessment bullet point. I would, on that first one, I would strike collaborative student dialogue and question and just leave discussion. So under assessments, it would be, the 3 bullet points would be discussions, quizzes, rubrics. And then under primary course features include, I would add methods to the end of communication. So communication methods being messaging and announcements. And then down on performance skills, again, that second to last bullet point, I would strike collaborative student dialogue and just replace it with discussions, or just leave discussions. Down on the performance skills, did that get changed? Yes. Okay, and that's the end of my.
Ashley, a couple of questions. The other courses, do they go through lesson plans and the components of those? And
well, this is for a teacher,
yep,
right? Teaching them how to create a lesson plan and what things to include.
Are there the other courses do that? Okay. And then Board Member Klein, I'm just curious because earlier when we were looking at, I just am wondering if you give that much detail, does it provide, are you creating a restrictive environment where the students cannot be creative? As soon as you say, do this, this, and this, reflect on this, I'm just trying to understand.
These are just elements, principles of lesson planning. It's not requirements. It's just if they want a framework on how to build a lesson plan. These are some elements that would be useful in them learning how to develop a lesson plan.
So a 10-10 is all about the beginning steps of creating a lesson plan that isn't technology based at all. It's specifically what she referred to, and then what they do at the post-secondary levels. as well.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Again,
All
it's
right.
just the two aspects to balance, and so that teachers are empowered to be able to teach whether or not they have technology. They can still function.
Okay,
Thank you. Any questions or additional comments?
I just wanna, yeah, I appreciate the time that went into laying this out in such detail, and it is impressive, and reading a list like that, I'm sure it would empower teachers and students and be something that would benefit them in such a big way, especially at a CTE high school level. I mean, anyway, so I appreciate it. I like what I see. I think it's very relevant to this course, so I would be in support of it. Thank you.
so once again, this would be a duplication of what they've already, okay, I just wanted to be
It's
clear
just
on
a
that. This
step,
isn't,
yeah.
normally we would build upon, but this is, okay. Just trying to understand that, okay?
And even in the teaching as a profession.
You might have to speak up louder,
Oh, Sorry,
sorry.
and even in the teaching as a profession, they do mini lessons, just like, kind of like how-tos, just to get that. Cause if you've ever taught, you know, the first time you've ever taught, you realize, oh, I don't have enough material like I thought I needed for it, and so it builds upon that before.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't missing something or something had been excluded from the courses that we have. So, okay,
All right. I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the amendment as reviewed by Board Member Klein, please say aye.
Aye.
I
Those opposed, say no.
No.
no,
No. So that's 2-3 with Board Member Klein and Board Member Green being yes.
okay, I'd like to make do you have any more amendments, Board Member Klein, before?
I do not.
All right. The committee moves that the board approves the educational instruction course as amended to the full board for approval.
Would you like to speak to that?
No, I feel like we've made some changes there. There may be a couple of more changes that I think are appropriate to move forward. Quite honestly, going through, I wish and I don't know, maybe it was just the wrong computer. My other computer pulled it up, but the one I normally use didn't. So I didn't see all the revisions as written. So that would have, I'm just saying in general, that would have been nice to have had that information. I'm not saying it was anyone's fault. I probably should have just double checked on that. I just saw things highlighted and thought they were comments. So my apologies for that. That should have been, I could have followed through better on that. So anyways, that's, I feel like I actually like the revision better. I think it's more in alignment with practices and still kind of keeps that balance in my view. So.
All right. All those in favor of
Did she just take a phone call?
Yeah, she said she was a yes.
Oh, okay.
Board Member Earl's motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Those opposed?
No.
no.
Thank you. The two noes being Natalie Klein and Emily Green. All right, so does that conclude the standards?
I think so. Is there anything else on there?
No.
So,
Okay. And is there any other outlying agenda items? No? All right, so we will see all of you at our upcoming board meeting and possibly even at USBA the next couple of days at Little America. Thank you very much for all those who have participated today and for the preparation on so many people's parts for the discussion and the amendments and suggestions. Appreciate staff for your clearing your calendars to be here. Thank you very much, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.